Hey, it's Dr. Dunaway here with Chiro Strength. In today's video, I'm going to give you a real simple fix for your sit-up to make it much more effective by increasing the abdominal activation and contraction and decreasing the amount of dysfunction that usually a normal sit-up will place into the system by overactivating and increasing the tone of the hip flexors. Now, really quickly, what I mean by that is most sit-ups, whether you're doing the variation of someone sitting on your toes or hooking your toes into something like this, will automatically increase the tone of the quads, and the quads have a lot of muscles that come up past the hip and actually help and assist in flexing that hip up. And so by increasing the tone of those hip flexors, you're going to decrease the amount of work that the abdominals have to do. Now, the other thing people do is they'll lay the feet open like this, and the hips will stay open, and that will actually bias the psoas. And so again, you'll be using a hip flexor, and when you use the hip flexor more, it's going to decrease the amount of demand on the core. And by increasing the tone of those hip flexors, it throws in a big wrench into the symmetry and the relationship between the core and pelvic musculature, and it sets the stage for a lot of injuries, especially repetitive use injuries, by doing these sit-ups over and over. So how to fix that is by taking advantage of a reflex called neurological inhibition, or reflexive inhibition. So when I contract my bicep, my tricep has to relax. It just has to happen, go through the normal range of motion. That same relationship applies between the hamstrings and the hip flexors. So if I contract my hamstrings, that opposite muscle, the antagonist muscle, has to relax, which will increase the demand on the core, which will give me a much more effective treatment or a much more effective exercise, and it'll decrease the strain or the stress on the hip flexors and not add as much dysfunction. So how I'm going to do that, I got a band right here. I'm going to wrap it just behind my ankles and my calf, and as I lay back, I'm going to pull that band towards me, and now my sit-ups, I'm going to do in this fashion here. So I'm not coming all the way up. If you decide to come all the way up, that's fine, but what you want to make sure you're doing is that you're not leading with the neck up like this. So if I lead with my chin, and I'm really jutting my chin this way, and I keep a very rounded back, that's also going to increase the strain on the low back. So I try to sit up and go nice and slow, come up to a good comfortable point, and as long as I'm pulling my ankles towards me and keeping that contraction, the hamstrings, I'll get much more engagement of the core, I'll decrease the risk of the low back strains, and I'll really decrease the risk of kind of throwing in that dysfunction of the tight hip flexors. So give that a try. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, comment below. You can always reach me at drdunaway@chirostrength.com. I'd be happy to answer your questions. And like I always say, don't just mend, transcend. Thanks.